Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell here at CinemaBlend, back with another breakdown of Mandalorian. We're into Season 2. This is Chapter 12, and the episode was called The Siege, but I will only call this episode from here on out Tiny Mando Cookie Yoda Boy, because that is exactly what we got. We got Tiny Yoda in a classroom stealing cookies away from some guy who wasn't foolish enough to give him a taste of his snack. So this episode, Tiny Mando Cookie Yoda Boy, is exactly the type of mix of overall plot and story development, and then, of course, the Mission of the Week episode. And so we're going to break down all of the amazing things that we learned. Before we do that, of course, do me a favor. Go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. We're doing analysis like this after every single Mandalorian episode, and we want to make sure that you guys get to see all of the videos that we post. I really wanted to start this video by giving Mandalorian a ton of grief because no Ahsoka Tano. And, you know, you tease the fact that Mando has to bring the child to Ahsoka, and I've heard plenty of chatter online that went in both directions. They were like, oh, we're absolutely getting Ahsoka in this episode, live action Ahsoka, and then I heard some other fans who were saying, no, there's no way that that's going to happen. The ship still has to get repaired, and there's going to be some other misadventures with maybe Moff Gideon getting involved, and it's going to prevent Mandalorian and Baby Yoda from getting to Ahsoka. Well, it turns out that's what happened. And while I was about to give the show trouble for that, instead they ended up giving us what I consider to be the best episode of the season so far, because of the way that it beautifully balanced live action Star Wars adventures and just some of the most amazing Star Wars action that we've seen on screen in a really long time. I mean, you had TIE fighters and stormtroopers, but this was, like I said, the perfect balance of taking the overall story, which ties back into Moff Gideon and the child and all the reasons why they would like to get their hands on him, while also tying it into what has become the traditional Mission of the Week formula that Mandalorian is sort of attached to. And so this week it was Carl Weathers' character, Greef Carga, and Carl Weathers. Kudos on Carl Weathers for directing this episode, because it was fantastic. I mean, just some of the most amazing shots of the speeder bikes going off the cliffs and dropping down, and the TIE fighters coming flying out of that base. Carl Weathers was phenomenal. But the best part about it was, this wasn't a mission that was just in place to fill an episode. It ended up having some ties into what the overall larger story of the season and the show in general is going to be. And this is what everybody's going to be discussing, I would assume, for the rest of this week as we wait for the next episode. What was in the tank? What was that in the tank? What are the blood transfusions being used for? There's already a ton of speculation going around on it. I kind of think, personally, my theory is that it's the remains of Palpatine. We know that this series takes place after Return of the Jedi, when Emperor Palpatine was tossed down that hole. And we know, thanks to J.J. Abrams in The Rise of Skywalker, that Palpatine somehow figures out a way to live. Now, are they doing these experiments with the child in order to create some type of blood transfusion to restore the remains of Emperor Palpatine? Possible. But one other villain would be Emperor Snoke. Or is it someone completely different? I mean, it's not like it has to connect to the other stories, although Star Wars in general does a pretty good job of establishing what's going on in The Mandalorian and connecting it to the lore of the films. The other angle that we were sort of batting around was, are they trying to take Baby Yoda's ability to use the Force and give the Force to someone who doesn't have it? That also is a possibility. But I just love the fact that they haven't forgotten that there's a larger mystery at play here. This was one of the funniest episodes of the entire show, actually, and it did a really good job. And again, credit to Carl Weathers. Did a really great job of balancing humor with action, of reminding everybody that Star Wars is supposed to be fun. There's a huge metaphor in The Mandalorian about parenting. And I probably see this because I'm the father of two boys, but there are multiple references in this episode to the struggles of communicating with a young one. Just the fact that they dedicated a full 2 minutes to the bit of the blue wire, red wire was hilarious. I mean, if anyone's ever tried to get a toddler to do anything, that's just great. I mean, that was so perfect. And then, of course, later, you know, when Baby Yoda vomits green stuff all over himself. Like, we've all been there. We've been driving, you look in the rearview mirror, your kid has barfed up whatever he's been snacking on. So, I love whenever Mandalorian works in references to the challenges of this stoic bounty hunter who has to take care of a child, and I think it's hilarious. Got to see a little bit of Mandalorian eating. Got to see a chin. Still a lot of debate about how much of that is Pedro Pascal in the suit. I know that people have been sort of debating whether it's a stunt double or if they just use his voice, and I kind of want to know. And then Cara Dune. Let's talk about Cara Dune for a little bit. This does feel like they are laying the groundwork to go in a spin-off, potentially, with this character, especially her final scenes where they talk about, like, hey, we could use you, and you seem like a good fighter, and here's a bit of your story on Alderaan, and this backstory that we could explore if we were going to give you a spin-off character. But that just goes to suggest how strong the universe of Star Wars really is, that you could take these characters that you're being introduced to and potentially follow them off on other adventures. Bo-Katan would be another one of those characters that could go in that direction, and I think for a little while there was a rumor that Cara Dune and Bo-Katan would be used in a show together. Who knows if fans adore the live-action Ahsoka once we finally do get a chance to meet her, so that's a possibility as well, too. Tremendous episode. I thought this episode, like I said, was probably the best of the season. Beautiful, beautiful Baby Yoda memes that I'll be using because, as I mentioned, this episode will never be known as The Siege. It'll always be Tiny Mando Cookie Yoda Boy. So if I don't, as Katie, who works on this video, points out, if she does not have those cookies in her stocking on Christmas morning, then she's canceling the year. And I can't blame her for that. That's a rational response. So before you disappear, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, because we are going to be doing Mandalorian conversation all throughout the rest of the season, and so I want to make sure you keep it right here with us.